Any questions you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be cool. I don't think starting a minute early is gonna be a big deal. Look
Not
at this. So yeah, so most of the time, like I've had with, I don't know if you've ever seen any of that stuff. We get some. I got Livices on here and other Ish and Kyle. I mean, I never know where it's going to go with Kyle. Uh, I've had Zona on. Zona called me up before we did ours, and he was like, "So what are we going to talk about?" I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "What do you
something.
mean?" I was like, "Zona, man, like it's just the questions will pop up in this thing. It'll be good. Like the questions will drive, like the comments will drive the conversation." But
Yeah.
so first off, I got to know, like, so where did you like start? Like, where did you start all this? Like, when did it start for you?
Um. So my family, my granddad and dad, own a boat dealership here where I live in Union City. So always grew up around boats. My granddad and dad loved to fish, and I fished my first. I actually joined the Reelfoot Lake Junior Bass Club when I was like 9 years old, and that was the first tournament I fished. Was there? It's a little tiny watershed. Um, caught caught three little rats on a red shad culprit worm that you get from like uh, um, who is Tony Stewart sponsored by? Home something with the orange.
Home
It's an orange
Depot.
logo. Home Depot. That was the only place I had in town to buy any fishing lures. But yeah,
Dude, I fished a lot with a
that's
red
kind.
shad. Red shad culprit worm, dude. I fished that a
Yeah,
bunch.
yeah. But that's where it got started. I mean, just my dad, my granddad getting me into it from real young age. So I was in a some kind of boat every weekend. I mean, really, my granddad raised me, and during the week I was with my mom or dad going to school. But Friday afternoon, go to my granddad's house, and we would fish Friday afternoon when he got off work, and Saturday and Sunday. Every single weekend, we were on the boat doing something. So that's how I got started.
And so, like, where was that? What lakes?
So I live in Northwest Tennessee. So we fished a lot. Lake here is called Reelfoot Lake. It's a naturally flooded swamp created by an earthquake. Actually, big cypress tree lake, kind of like Caddo in Louisiana.
Hmm.
And then other than that, Kentucky Lake, I'm about 45 minutes from Kentucky Lake. So those are two bodies of water I fish the most. If we had a long weekend, we go spin on Pickwick. Those are three bodies of water that I spent most of my life on.
I'm gonna go all over the place.
All
When
right.
so I let me think. Kentucky Lake. I can't tell you. It's been a long time now. I I can tell you about tournaments. Like so, my memory's really good when it comes to tournaments, and like I can tell you almost every single fish from tournaments from like 10 years ago, like in order of when I caught, like not all of them, but I mean, if I get to going, like I probably fished over 500 tournaments in my lifetime. I mean, I can get to going where I like remember every single fish. When I went, I don't know what year Kentucky, like, you know what? I might have remembered now. I think my first time ever on Kentucky Lake, which doesn't count, kind of, but it was the Toyota Championship. Um, two, 2000 and like 10 or 11, but it was in the fall. So it wasn't really what you would
Yeah.
consider. Like I went there, I had no, it was, I think we were out of Paris, I believe. It was the first year that it was okay. It was the year the Alabama rig came along. So like it was the Alabama rig tournament. I think Elias had just caught him in Gunnersville. So like a guy was selling them out of a van like a couple days before that event. And I made a top 10 in that event. And I think it was like me and another guy were the only ones not throwing an Alabama rig. Like I didn't go buy one and I just caught him. I caught him on a chatterbait. But and I don't know if they still do this, but back then they were all the pockets south of the bridge, all on the left hand side as you're going down. or up or down, whatever, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
There was like thousands and like acres of schooling fish back in there. They were really hard to catch. Like they were
Yeah.
but yeah, but the next time, I don't know when the next time I got to go fish in Kentucky Lake semi-ledge tournament, and I hated it. I hated it. Like it was
Yeah.
so different from like our ledge fishing. And like you grew up on, like, was it just normal to you?
Yeah. So it's crazy to even think about. So when I was a kid, um, the first few times that I was ledge fishing on Kentucky Lake, my granddad, I mean, I'm not this old, but we weren't using a flasher, but I'm saying we're using like a Lowrance Eagle, something just real small in the dash, black and white. And we would go out to the green or red buoys, and he would scan in a snake-like fashion, back and forth, back and forth. And wherever we would go out further or in further, there was a turn or a point or a creek channel mouth or whatever it was. And I would always remember him just heaving a buoy back to where it would go in further, come out. There was not very many times that he threw out a buoy and we didn't sit there all day and just catch fish. And another thing that we did, I'm sure you know what they are. They're the old Pose 400p crankbaits, the
Mm-hmm.
old wooden crankbaits, and we would both just have those behind the boat
Trolling.
on like a just just trolling. And then whenever we would both hook up, he would put the boat in gear and just chunk a buoy back there, and we would fish there for probably the next 3 weekends catching fish. So yeah, I have done that my whole life, and thanks to my granddad, we were like some of the only ones out there doing it. I mean, I was 8, 10 years ago. I mean, this is 20 years ago we were doing this, and it's pretty special just kind of getting to come up and being not the first ones out there clearly, but seeing how he found stuff and just being out there for everybody else. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So I grew up on Livingston. Of course, we had no offshore fishing, so it was all junk. I mean, 4 foot or less and everything. But I grew up white bass fishing since I can remember, and I was guiding at like, I would say guiding. I wasn't supposed to be guiding at 15, but I was guiding at like 15. You had to license, but I mean, where we lived, there was a lot of weekenders and stuff, and so I was just like 15-year-old taking guides out white bass fishing, and then but that's how everyone trolled. We trolled with like hellbenders and a pet spoon. And same deal, you just troll over these like ledges out there, these humps and things. And it was same deal, like you catch fish, but if you ever doubled up, so it'd be me and my dad, and if one of us doubled up, or if we both doubled up, that's when did the same thing. And it was basically white bass fishing. So it was the exact same thing. When I got my first I had a 1976 boat, a Washita boat, stick steering with like a 40 horse, and it had a flasher on there. And so I grew up with I had to learn the flasher because I was a little bit older. I was like, that's when I was like 15, and I would go find those fish, and I read the flasher, and I just hated trolling, and because we would troll and then turn around with a jigging spoon and catch them all that way. So we'd be jigging them like left and right, and then everyone would be like, back then there would be boats everywhere. And once someone saw someone catch a fish, everyone trolling would start making big circles around you. And they just circle you like, and we just be like one after another. But I learned to read that flasher where I could go pretty fast, faster than I could trolling, and then read what white bass look like on the bottom. And then I could I could do that a lot. I could do it with I don't even know what sonar we had, some little with the blocks on there. I could read the blocking on the bottom. If it made a certain like deal on the bottom, then I could tell that those were white bass over, because you could see tons of fish on there, but I was able to determine what the ones were at, and it was pretty same deal. But cool. It didn't help me when I got to like by the time I got to Kentucky Lake, so 2000, I'm just going to throw a number out there, 13, 14, 15. The lake was, you could catch them out there, don't get me wrong, and guys would, but I don't think it was like it was starting not to decline, but people were already side imaging. There was all that stuff, and it got hard. Like you could go graph for hours, and I wouldn't find anything that I thought was like the deal. And I want to ask you this too. Like, of course, I was fishing against Randy Haynes. Lambert was out there. Mark Rose, some of those guys. And when I started going there, and I did pretty good in some Toyotas, and I guess it was mainly Toyotas. I can't remember if we had anything else. I can't remember if I think we went there during the tour one time. I didn't try to ledge fish too much because I was like, man, I have no shot against those guys that have 20 years on me. Do you feel that way sometimes? I mean, or do you understand that?
Oh, for sure. Like and it's taken me a while to do this because when you go somewhere, there's this preconceived notion, hey, I'm going to Kentucky Lake, you got to be ledge fishing. You got to be fishing bars. You got to be doing something like that. And when I go somewhere, and a lot of times it's like that, and I don't know, I'm thinking of the open schedule going to Lake Norman next year, posted fish docks on Norman. I couldn't skip a dock with a wacky worm if I had a week. I cannot fish a dock. So if I was going somewhere that the deal was something I didn't want to do, I just completely went away from it. So yeah, I know what you're saying. It's just um, there's so many people better at a certain thing than we might be at that thing. I just don't mess with it. I really don't because I know I'm not going to outfish them fishing the way that they like to fish, and they have so much experience doing it.
When we were there for, I guess it was a Toyota, and it was there around May, and like I said, I remember talking to Lambert, and it was after day one, and he was leading with whatever he had, and I had 20, 22 or 23 after day one, which was on top 10, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he was like, "How'd you catch him?" I'm like, "Frog." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "I caught him off frogging." I was like, "Well, I caught one on a plopper here." And I was like, "I caught like a 5-pounder in this marine whatever." And he was like, "Frogging." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I can't go do it. Like, I can catch fish out there with y'all. But like, it's just, I'm just wandering around out there. And I'm like, I've got this to myself. Now, I think I might have caught like 15 or 17. I can't remember what happened after that. What I caught the next day. But he's like, dude, you're probably the only guy in the top 10 doing this. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm in the top 10 for at least day one. But I've done that everywhere I go. That's how I grew up on Rayburn too. When they had grass in Rayburn. And that's when I figured out not to fish the grass. Like everyone always thinks I'm this big grass flipping guy because I'm from Rayburn and I catch them. And I'm like, yeah, I've never made a top 10 in my life flipping grass. I actually flip more grass now than I did 20 years ago, only because now no one flips grass. But back then, everyone flipped grass, and I'm like, I can't beat those guys. I've never done it that much, and so I just learned to catch them other ways, and it was the best thing I ever did was like learning how to catch them another way than like 90% of the field.
Yeah,
it's hard, but once you figure it out.
Yeah, and most of the time when you do that, you're not fishing for the majority population of fish, but the fish you're fishing for are a lot more gullible than the fish everybody else is fishing for. Smaller percentage of bass, but a lot dumber bass most of the time.
I'd found spots on Kentucky Lake. They weren't bars. They were entrances to places. They weren't out there on like the main. I found one. I can name all the ones I found. One was randomly out there in the middle. I don't know if I could find it again. I doubt I have a waypoint. I don't think I didn't carry over any waypoints when I switched like 3 years ago. So I don't have a single waypoint on Kentucky Lake.
Yeah.
There was another one south of the bridge that I found some in Paris or south of Paris. What's that big creek on the right?
Big Sandy.
Yeah. I found some fish back in there, and I was just happy to get bit. And it was one of them tournaments. And this was what kind of pissed me off. So at the last little place I found like a little group of them. And we were out of Barkley, like the south end of Barkley in this tournament. I drove all the way down there because I'd never fished up north. I say north, that side of the other side of the lake.
Yeah.
And I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes. Anyways, day one, I was in the top 10 fishing like Carolina rigging, cranking on this one spot. No one fished it. It was like, a guy or two would drive by me every once in a while. But I mean, I had it. Like, and I think at like 12, I left and fished other spots and watched it. Like I watched in the distance because I already had like 20 something. Anyways, the next day I pull up there and I drive all the way down there and there's a guy sitting on it that morning. And I rolled up to him and had a conversation with him. I left and I went and I found out who he was, his name, all that stuff. I was pretty pissed off because I was pretty sure he was one of the guys that drove by me on day one and saw me catching him. And I had a wrap boat at the time or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was like, that was a long ways to drive down there to freaking not catch him.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks. And
that doesn't happen as much on like our lakes, but I think it happens a lot on y'all's.
oh yeah. Yeah, it's just, I mean, we all know it's just that the Tennessee River in general is just spot specific. Most time, year after year. Sometimes they change, but like when you see someone boat up on one, there's fish that get there for months of the year, almost every year. Yeah, they take breaks. They might go cold for 4 or 5 years and come back, but um, that happens a lot. There is not. You can't go sit on somewhere that you want to keep a secret. So
I've gotten into I won't call them arguments, discussions that I thought that every time I see that play out on the elites, I didn't see it much on the tour, but I saw it way more on the elites, is that when you see guys, if you want to call it sharing a spot or like all together, I was like, God, that's the worst thing that they could ever show on TV.
yeah,
Because
it makes it seem okay when it's not. I'm not saying it's not okay for the situation that people get in big time
tell them
tournaments.
why though. I already know where you're going to go with. Tell them why.
Yeah, I mean,
why it's kind of okay when y'all do it.
Yeah, it's kind of okay because we usually all find it at different times. There's no one else there, and we all show up, and we're like, "This is the only place I got. We're here fishing for a living. We have no choice but to share it." But
And a
when
lot
you're
of
on a
times I'll
lake,
talk before.
yeah, we all talk. We all talk. It's not the same when you're not in a big time tournament at all. It's just completely unsportsmanlike. It really is. You can go on about it, but
No, I've got because the younger generation sees that, or I don't even
yeah,
say it's the younger, but like they'll come to Rayburn every once in a while, and I mean, you want to talk about having it out. We've had it out with, I mean, and we're respectable when we do it, but we just don't. We are going to have a conversation, and it's
yeah,
not going to be, and it's going to be it's going to be let known that I'm like, hey, this ain't the elites. This ain't, we didn't talk. I don't know who you are. And I was,
mhm,
and everyone can sit there. And we're all pretty, I'm probably really laid back about most of it in the sense of it rarely ever happens to us anymore. LiveScope's kind of changed it to where it's not even a big deal. But 9 times out of 10, there's a backstory. Like, so like I said, like that spot at Kentucky Lake, I was the first one there. I stayed on it forever. And then I fished in within sight of it the whole day. And then that guy comes up and starts on it that morning. And maybe he could have gone to it, whatever. And he could have gone to it after 12 o'clock, but I watched no one doing it. So I kind of, all these other places, it's like, well, that guy? I'm like, yeah, that guy was last week saw us catching fish on this spot. Like, we almost know when it's going to happen. So it's very, there's always usually backstories to it to where it's not like we're just randomly jumping on some guy who pulls up on us. Because most of the time, like everyone's always like making excuses for those guys. I'm like, I've never been yelled at. And everyone's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I don't roll. Like, if someone was already there, I just keep going. Yeah. Actually, I've always told people this, and I'm like, a lot of times you give away. A guy did this one time, saw us fish in a spot, practicing for an event. Me and my buddy found it that day, and we caught 3 2-pounders off of it. We could have cared less about that spot. Didn't think twice about it. I mean, it's on Rayburn. It was like a big deal. When we left and we got home, but the night of the tournament, like at 8 o'clock, we got a text message, kind of cussing us out for that, about that spot, and we were laughing because I was like, "Oh, that's a spot.
That must be a lot better than we thought it was." Yeah.
Yeah, we had no idea. And I was like, oh, so like they kind of gave it away. We wouldn't have, I might not have ever thrown there ever again. And them getting mad. And I was like, oh, I guess that's where they've been catching them. Had no clue. And I always tell people, like, when you kind of get into it, like you kind of sometimes give it away by like making a scene over something. Because a lot of times, you know, you just leave it alone and don't say anything, they'll never know.
Yeah, you just keep going.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I already. Well, the problem is that there's probably, I mean, I'm thinking of one guy right now, but yeah, there's always a handful of those guys. But what's funny is that I don't think that guy does it anymore. I told someone that, he was like, hey, I don't think he does that. I'm like, yeah, I know, because he's like, he doesn't have to anymore. he's already found them all. Like once you already know them all, you don't have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
All right. So do you even know why I wanted to have you on? Like the one thing, we'll get into it.
No clue.
There was a tournament, and I don't watch too many of elites. Like I just watch bits and pieces, so I really get the whole story. And I always tell everyone, it's kind of like how I make videos that like, and maybe you'll agree with this. I've never said it to any of y'all. Do y'all think what they show y'all, and bear with me on this, is that it's a very incomplete picture of how y'all fish. In the sense of, like, they just show y'all, they don't even barely show y'all day one, right? But wouldn't you say like the most important part, not the most important, but 50% of what they're missing is y'all's practice?
No, for sure. Yeah.
Right. So that's the incomplete part. And so like, I always say that, like, and I'm not saying they should ever do this, but it's almost like, I always say it's like opening up a novel and reading and starting in the middle and thinking you understand everything about what's going on. And I'm always like, y'all missed, to me, I could care less how y'all catch them or anything like that. I would much rather watch y'all practice. And I think everyone has it done differently, but y'all were on, I don't even know what, somewhere in Florida. I guess it was this year, because I said I wanted to do it with you. You were throwing a Carolina rig on a bulkhead on the side of it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Was it okay? So I'll let you go into it, but like, and I don't know. Like I said, this could be, you could have been like, someone told me, like, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, I go to Kentucky Lake, and someone could have told me something about Kentucky Lake 3 years earlier. I'm like, hey, fish that spot, whatever, right? So I'm not saying it was against the rules. Someone told you or whatever, but I'm like, how many times are those random, or you like were looking for that?
About places like that?
Yeah, I mean, just curious as to, I find hard spots are very loosely talked about, in the sense of, oh, just go throw on hard spots. And I'm like,
yeah, that ain't the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's tons of them, but like I kind of keep it secret on Rayburn, what I call hard spots and what I don't. And there's hard spots. I have a feeling what people are calling hard spots are places on the bottom that are harder than others. very loosely said. The spots that we thought about where we caught them, like they got there for like a couple years, and they're 30-pound bags. That's a different deal than like I just randomly caught them on a hard spot today, and I can't go back there tomorrow, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so out of all of my offshore fishing, most of the time when you find a place like that, almost always on accident. Like you're not you're looking for it,
I know.
but you stumble up on it and it stumbles up on you. That's just how all of those places are because if you're thinking about it, so have 10 other guys behind you thought of that. And I was going down the river at St. John's River, and soon as I got is that lower part of the river, and I got down there, scanned a school of fish, and I was like, okay, and they're 2 pounders, nothing special about it. Go a little further, 2 pounders, 2 pounders. I mean, there was like 10 schools of fish. They were all small. I go in a couple of canals, no females. I couldn't find females anywhere. And I'm like, well, no females out, or no females are spawning, and there's no females out deep. Well, they got to be on that main channel somewhere. There's only so many places they can hide. So I spent my whole practice looking on that main channel. I normally look on a main body of water. Try to make this long story short.
You don't have to keep it.
I
It's all
started playing.
right. I'm smiling because I can't wait to comment.
Yeah. So I'm looking for different stuff. I've flipped pads, I've trapped grass, I've punched, I've looked at there's only so many flat places on a body of water, and when you get to where there's few flat places, everybody looks at them. There's usually fish there, but all of our guys find that stuff. And I start looking at where like pad lines would grow to where it'd fall off to the bottom of nothing. And I'm running this stuff, not catching anything. And that particular spot was a huge bend in the river, and current was just washing up on the seawall. And on the chart on Lake Master and Avionics, I run both, and it both showed this seawall, 20 foot deep down the side of it. And I put my trolling motor down. I get about halfway up past, I get about the halfway point of the seawall, put my trolling motor down. It's like 10 foot. I'm like, that's not supposed to be 10 foot right there. But I keep going and it does fall off to 20 foot like it's supposed to. And I didn't think anything about it. I did have one fish. As soon as I put my trolling motor down, I had one big fish follow my jerkbait, come up off the bottom as soon as I put my trolling motor down. And I thought nothing else about it. Run down there in the tournament. I'm running places I've found fish and whatever. And it took me, this is the third day of tournament. It took me almost 3 full days of tournament fishing for me to go, my brain to say, hey, I had one follow my bait there, and it was a lot shallower than it was supposed to be. I'm like, maybe there's some fish there. And I put my trolling motor down, and all it was that current had ate out all that bottom underneath that seawall and just blowed. I mean, it was junk. It was rocks there. I literally pulled up a fence post. There's a lawn chair there. I mean, there were just it was just a trash pile off the seawall, and I don't know. It was 50 foot wide and 50 foot long. Just a really small, just shelf that had got naturally made over time, and it's just something that was special, but it was nothing that I was particularly looking for. It almost found me in a way. And like I said, there's so many times that that happens. It's just complete accident that you go over those places because big fish don't live in places where they get pestered. They live in places that are overlooked with good feeding opportunity. And that's what that was. Had a lot of fresh water moving in it, and no one else was messing with them because when you go to fish a seawall, a lot of times you're throwing at the seawall and not what's underneath your boat, and that's what that place was.
So it's tough because this YouTube thing that I've started, and YouTube has been very difficult at times for me to be to be nice sometimes, or like
Yeah.
when I first started, and I say nice, when I first started, I saw everyone on YouTube doing certain things, and I just go, God, that's a worthless video. And I would just watch these videos, and I'm like, that's not. It reminded me of like, hey, Kentucky Lake. Here's a ledge. Current goes there. That's where you look for. And ideally, they're correct. But if you went and did that, you could fish for a week and never catch a fish.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, I'm like, hey, look, so you gotta, they're right, but that's not necessarily how we always find them or whatever. But that's not what people want to hear. Like I've just learned that people
Yeah.
want to hear, they don't want to hear that. What you just gave them, they don't want to hear. Now I want to hear. I love it. Like
Yeah.
love it. Because I'm like, yeah, that's the real answer. From a legit pro elite guy, whatever, that's the real answer that I would love to. But if you said that most of the time, they don't believe you. And they want to be like, yeah, right, he got that spot this way or that way. Because man, some of the best places are always by accident. I got one. Here's one for you. Best spot I ever found on Rayburn. We had it for 4 to 5 years. The lake got really low. Okay. And so I'm out there, and the lake was like I don't know, 8 foot, 9 foot low for a while. And grass started growing out there on the main lake. And I found this little hump, right? And it had grass growing on it. And it was a little, like at the time there was a lot of grass growing out there. And anytime I could go out there with the top water in the fall and just giants out there on this grass, right? On some of this like shallow grass. So there was this little stretch of grass, probably take you 3 casts to fish it. And there was like a stump or two I remember being there. It's the only reason I stopped. The grass was right under the water. No one even probably knew the grass was growing there. Never caught a fish there, but every time I went, probably like 4 different times, I had a absolute tank blow up on it and miss my top water, which was irrelevant why it missed it. I don't really care. That was just, whatever. So lake came back up, all this stuff, whatever. And just like you talk about 3 days before you went back up there. We're talking months, right? And then like
Yeah.
finally I was like, hey man, what about that spot? In my head, I was thinking about this spot. And I'm like, man, I always had big ones there. I wonder if I was thinking about those 2 stumps that barely stuck up out of the water. They were, the lake kind of came back up to like 10 more feet now, 8 or 9, 10 foot. So stumps are irrelevant. They were barely sticking out of the water. And I was like, well, man, I'm just going to go fish over there. Well, there's no grass anymore because it all went away. So I'm like cranking around. Well, it only takes, 5, 6, 7 casts to cover it all, the crankbait. And I just start, I might have marked it, but there's nothing really, there's a little drop off, like 2 or 3 foot drop off kind of around it. Nothing special anywhere around there. So I'm cranking. And I catch one. And I hook one, and I'm like, this is giant. And I get it in, it's like a 9 or 10 pounder. And I'm like, it's the only fish I catch. Well, I waypoint it, right? And so I think it was like a couple months, it was in the fall. We had a tournament in December, and me and my buddy are fishing. I didn't really pay much attention to it. And next thing I know, I'm cranking around this, like I'm with my buddy and we're cranking, but I'm going, you got to realize, in my head, I know what it looks like underwater, like where the grass is. Now I see my waypoint, but I'm still cranking where the grass, like where I think the spot is. So I crank her all around the spot, and I'm looking at my GPS, and I'm like looking over there, and it's like 50 feet over there. And I'm like, why is my waypoint over there? Because I always, once I hook one, I reach down and waypoint everywhere I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Before I ever land the fish. So we're cranking, and I finally get over to the spot, and I'm like, what? This is all messed up, and we're cranking. My buddy hooks one, or no, I might have hooked one, and I hook it, and I'm like, hey, it's a giant, and I'm reeling it in, and it gets hung up. And I'm like, oh, I must have hit that stump. Crap. And all of a sudden it breaks. And I'm like, dang it. I'm like, that's weird. And so, anyways, like, 30 seconds later, this fish comes up. It's like another 10 or 11 pounder. Crankbait. You see his crank is right. And I'm like, we just both look at each other like, whatever. So this is how stupid I am. So that spring or February, whatever, I'm out there fishing with another buddy of mine. And we happen to go by there. And I'm like, hey, let's throw around. So we're throwing around Carolina rigging around this spot. Nothing. And I swear to you, I'm looking over at this waypoint going, why is my waypoint over there? Because it doesn't make any sense. So I get over there to that waypoint. We finally get over there, first cast. I mean, we're casting around, but I get on I'm like, I kind of always like throw in this direction. Get it 8 or 9 pounder. So like the next week they had a tournament there. It was a bass and bucks. My fishing partner couldn't make it. I fished it by myself. I found these other fish in this place and I smash on them. Like I catch a giant bag out of the fish out of the grass, Carolina rigging. Is a trailer event. And they stopped biting for like 2 or 3 hours. I couldn't catch any more. It's like 12. And I'm like, what do? I got like 26 pounds. I don't know how to cull up any. Like, how do you cull up? So I'm like, I'll just drive over there and like go fish around there. So I literally go over there. I drive my truck around because we could trailer. It was bad. Get over there. No one's ever even close to being anywhere around me. I go out there and I go right up there and I start Carolina rigging. Like 30, 45 minutes go by. Not on my waypoint, mind you. That's how stupid I am. I'm still throwing on the place that looks like you should catch them on. And I finally get over there, first cast with a Carolina rig on that waypoint in the right direction. I catch an 8 pounder. I ended up winning the event, won like 15, 20 grand. It took me that many times to like finally go, but I couldn't figure out why they were there. Now, then I started kind of really studying it and really understanding what was there and like how it was a hard spot. The other place was a hard spot too, but it was different there. And even then it wasn't until I think the next year, me and Russell won a TXTT off of. We had 36 pounds off of it. And we won a brand new boat and everything else like that. And I started understanding it. But that was the first time we'd ever caught like multiple fish off of it. Yeah. And because usually it was just one or two. That's all I even thought it was. I didn't think it was a place you'd catch a bunch. And then we had it for a couple of years, and then it finally went away. I kind of know why it went away. And I've caught fish there on occasion, never like that. But by accident, like you said, it's never by accident, but you're not looking for it. When you find it, it's never what you thought that's what you're looking for.
It's never the place that you pick on the map and say, I'm about to go look right there.
Yeah.
You might set your boat down there, scan it, whatever, and you might be eating a bag of chips idling 30 yards away from where you originally stopped. And that's just, those places just happen upon you. I don't know how to explain it. But like you said, it's just not pure luck, but a lot of luck involved in it.
I think so. Now I kind of look at those areas as what I've tried to do is keep an open mind and go, this section looks good. And so kind of like you said, like I was fishing all around there, and then you decided to finally kind of do that. But I just laughed when you said they're not supposed to be up there because it was too shallow. It made me think, well, they're not supposed to be on this waypoint. They're supposed to be where I think it's right.
Yeah.
And I didn't even trust my own waypoint like multiple times. I swear to you, my fishing partner, I'm like, hey, dude, I think the GPS is, you know how your GPS won't work sometimes? I literally every time thought my GPS was wrong because it was not anywhere near what I thought you would catch a fish by. And then I started going, oh, crap, how do I find this stuff again? Because this is needle in a haystack, and it's a needle in a haystack worth $100,000 over a course of a year or two. And so I'll look for them. I've found sort of them. I knew another guy too, who found a spot like that. And he said the same, like they were fishing, and he said he was on the back of the boat. And he said he fired off in the total opposite direction of anything that remotely and he had a big bite, and he said they won numerous tournaments off that spot for a couple of years.
Yeah. 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 And I think a lot of places like that are not northern strain largemouth. I think most of that is the Florida strain, Lunker. I mean, I as long as I've been fishing on the Tennessee River, they're don't get me wrong, there's sweet spots you catch giant bags of fish on, but like what you're talking about, like truly a place that only holds big fish that no one messes with. Um, I think there's a whole lot more to the Florida strain. I mean, whatever you want to call them. The guy said Lone Star bass. Like, there's so much more to learn about those bass than they are northern strain largemouth. I think they do a lot more weird stuff. They feed differently. They get in more weird places. Um, Florida is just a prime example of that. That is just chock plumb full of giants, and it's so hard to find them. And we only catch and fish for such a small percentage of them because we're fishing Florida style ways, flipping pads and reeds and frogging and doing whatnot. And that's just not where the majority of the big fish live. Don't know if anyone knows how to specifically go look for them, but they do weird stuff. I know they do. I mean, when they put Florida strain in Kentucky Lake, this was back when people ran to New Johnsonville and south to win tournaments
Oh
because
yeah.
we had a million Florida strain bass got put in there 3 years in a row. And when those fish got big, you had to go down there and win tournaments. And I spent a lot of time down there, and they would do almost the opposite things that the northern strain bass would do. When northern strain bass would go deep when it got hot, the Florida strain bass didn't mind the warm water. But in the fall and winter, when stuff started to cool off, northern strain bass would push shallower, and our Florida strain would almost follow the warm water and be deeper. So like it was weird, like October when you start having those first cool days and the top of the water got cool, your big Florida strain bass would actually go deeper, and the northern strain bass would actually come shallower. And I could never get a grip on how to specifically target Florida strain bass at certain times of the year. And you could pretty much pinpoint what you thought the northern strains would do just because they would follow, I guess, our fisherman textbook more correctly. But those different strains of bass do weird things that I don't know if anyone has a complete hold of or not, but they
Well,
do weird stuff.
I don't know if I mean, on Rayburn, they're very, I'm not saying predictable. Here's the one thing I'll say maybe about them, or I've learned about big fish, is that, and we didn't tell anybody this for a long time. I don't know if it would matter. I think some of these guys would still do it. We were like psychotic. Like I was like psycho when it came to practice fishing. And like, once I realized what I was looking for, how not to show them any bait, right? So it was like, we got pretty good where I had one bait that I could throw, and it was by far, he was going to catch the big one, and you could shake him off with it. So like we could go around throwing like we could do a lot of stuff and go, hey, I got bit, got hit. This is like me and my fishing partner talking, and I'm like, hey, I got bit on oh big boy, you know. And so whenever we got bit on one of those, it was like we knew that was, if you threw back in there and got another bite and shook it off, that's where we start without ever even looking at it. That's in I'd say 9, maybe 10 out of 10 times, it was the place to start. Like we were dead on. We knew. And so we always laugh because guys were like, how many 10-pounders you ever caught? I'm like, I have no, we don't know. Like I couldn't tell you how many 10-pounders. And I said, I don't care how many 10-pounders I've ever caught. I want to know how many I've shook off before.
Yeah.
Because we shook off so many big fish in those places. And then we got these other guys on Raven on social media and everyone else, and they were going out there and they were like, caught me 30 pounds today. And I'm going, more. And they fish tournaments. And I was going, we never, some of those places we might have caught one fish. It would be one of those deals where it'd be like December or November, and we went kind of just to like throw there because we hadn't thrown there in like 6 to 7 months. And we didn't have another tournament for like 3 months, and we might catch like one, and it would be a monster, right? But I'm like, what if we did this every day? How many fish we would catch? But what we noticed is we did pretty good compared to everyone else because we never caught those fish, and everyone catches those fish, and I think they can't help themselves, and they never caught them in tournaments rarely, and they never caught big bags, and we always were like laughing, never saying a word to each other, going, dude, they think these 8-pounders just grow on trees.
Yeah.
And there's this, and when they got together, they stayed together. And if you just left them alone, they'd all be good. But like we could even tell from like day 1 to day 2, how day 1 was 5 casts, and day 2 was like first 3 casts, and then like 10 casts later catch one, and then maybe catching. And now we might have another 30-pound bag. And then the next week would be like try to catch 2 or 3. And so what we started doing, like there were times where we'd catch 3 and leave. And then just because we're like, we're going to catch 2 other fish, we probably want it. Because we just knew how you had, like, we think 9 times out of 10, most of those guys found places like this and they killed it within the first time they found it, or they did a lot of damage to them, and we just never did. And we never told a soul because you would think you wouldn't have to, but I was like, we're like, just let them freaking beat them all up.
Let them wear it out.
Yeah.
There's only so much magic a place can produce, and there's only so many fish that caliber, especially in the area that you're going to fish. I mean, they're there for a reason. And once you poke on them enough, you either go get them all smart or they're going to swim off. But fat bass fishing, he's got a big one in that picture, don't he? That's old big. Do you mean answer that, Todd?
Yeah.
I think the downturn was we had a great bass population. We had some grass. We lost our grass. All the fish got very exposed at the same time. Everyone's getting good at side imaging, and everybody was plucking them off. They're having a hard time. We got Asian carp in the lake. Asian carp ate all the plankton. We had no shad left. And I think that when our shad left, our bass changed forage. And I think the bass changing forage made everyone think there was not any bass left, because gizzard shad, threadfin, whatever, they feed on plankton, they feed on algae. Those things get on places that us fishermen fish for: hard spots, rocks, points, grass patches, whatever, a bridge piling. And when there's no bait fish left on those places, they go to the only food source, which was Asian carp. Asian carp lived in the middle of the river channel, and that's where all of our bass went to, feeding on nomadic Asian carp. And you couldn't really scope them because they were the same size as carp. And that's why you're seeing a bigger smallmouth population. They thrived a little better on that open water feeding more so than a largemouth did. So now, as we're getting more shad, as we're getting fewer carp, you're starting to see fish set up how they used to. I think just because of forage standpoint, and we're starting to see a few more fish in the lake. So the short version of that.
You think it's Crispin? You know Crispin Polly?
Yeah.
Crispin always told me. He said he'd seen Kentucky Lake go through this like earlier. He said whenever the bass population on Kentucky Lake goes bad, the smallmouth freaking like go nuts. And I've never heard anyone say that, but I watched the resurgence of the smallmouth, and whether it's guys fishing for. I don't think it's like guys targeting them. I mean, gosh dang, they just can't help it when they just start biting your bait, and you just get
Yeah.
them to bite
No.
pretty easy. And I just always, I always found that interesting about how that went, and a lot of it because I think I did a video the other day on like silt around Livingston, and like fishermen always get like everyone always thinks, and this pisses me off. Everyone always thinks those fishermen have something to do with these lakes getting better and worse, and I say it's like we have like a 1% effect on these lakes compared to like Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Right. So, and when I say fishermen, I'm not like, I think the grass leaving the south end, right? Because when I remember when I was going down there, we used to have Strike King Riders conferences there in the fall. And when we'd go down there and we just go, I just go south. We'd have it there at Paris, and we'd just go, I'd go south. And then like the whole, like once you got to the power lines, whatever they are, it's just a solid grass. And that's all I'd go do. It was awesome. When you take all that away, right, and then you add in the carp and everything else, it's just all at once. I mean, we see it down here when our grass goes. I mean, I don't think the fishing. Well, Toledo, yeah, Toledo got worse when they took the grass out. Like grass helps. I've never seen a lake where you take grass out and the lake got better. We said the same thing with like zebra mussels. Zebra mussels were horrible. Everyone hated them, and I was like, I can show you 10 lakes that they got them, and the lake exploded with bass for a couple years, and then the zebra mussels are gone, and the lake's not as good. I have no idea why. I'm just telling you, like, you can say what you want to, but like there's certain things that help it. And I always think that Kentucky Lake, I think the worst thing, even maybe worse than Asian carp, are y'all's floods in the springtime.
Yeah.
I think the floods
Yeah.
y'all
It's
have when the water's going because y'all's floods are different than our floods. Like when Rayburn floods, it comes up like this, just like this, real slow, over days upon days upon days, and then it stops, and then as it comes down like this, an inch a day, 2 inches a day. Y'all's, they could like get it right here, and then 3 days later it drops 5 foot. Like right in the middle of them spawning, and it just does. I've seen a couple years where y'all had it was like up and down, like for a month. It just did that, and I just think that's worse than anything.
Yeah. And we're the tulip bowl of the Tennessee River. We get all the water that no one else wants. So
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of fluctuation.
I think that's way worse than everything else. That's just, I mean, I just think them being able to spawn. And I know they don't all spawn at once, but that's what I'm saying. I saw Kentucky Lake for like, remember when it was flooding? Y'all just never had, consistency when it did that. It would be fine if Kentucky Lake stayed at 7 foot high for a month. It'd probably make y'all's lake unbelievable. Or if it went, I don't even care if it went down 7 foot and stayed at 7 foot low. Just that consistency, because I always tell people, I'm like that lake you were talking about that I'm sure is a natural lake that you grew up on. Mm-hmm. Anytime you get some of those natural lakes that stay constant, they always have good spawns. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But like you see these other lakes that like go up and down like that. I mean, it can be, y'all's are done by the locks and stuff. I mean, we just don't have that where we can drop a lake that quick like y'all can.
Yeah, and it gets very unfortunate in the spring because TVA, and it's just like we do get really bad floods, but honestly, when the flooding is happening, a lot of times it is high, and it'll be level. The fish will start to spawn, it'll come up, it'll pull it back down close. But the worst things that happen is when they project a rain. TVA says, let's prepare for that. And then they may prepare too early. They may drop the lake. The water may not get down there, but all the time they project stuff. And a lot of times their projections are right, but when they project incorrectly, they drop it 3 foot, may not come up 3 foot, or the water may not come in when they think it is. Like what you're saying, if they project all that water coming in a day too early, they drop it 3 foot, then we get 3 foot of water. I mean, we get, I mean, 3, 4 foot swings in a day sometimes. It's crazy, but
Yeah, I think that's the worst. I just do.
yeah,
Because I mean, I've just been around enough spawn. I mean, they just can't. One, you can't make a bed and have eggs on it, and then it's
mhm,
dry 2 days later. I mean,
yeah,
and people. That's why I always laugh because we just and I base all this off of just sight fishing. Like I've sight fished enough lakes, and I just watch. I watch fish and how long they actually like. Everyone always. It's always funny to me because I'd say 90% of people's opinions come from like reading something.
yeah,
And I'm like, I was like, I've never read anything on this, but I know when I go out to this lake in February 23rd, and I see fish on beds, and then it's May 15th, and they're still on beds. And I'm watching fish, and I go out there 4 days a week, and I've watched these fish spawn over this much time. And some of these guys are like, I was out there that weekend and they weren't on beds, and like they base it off of one trip, or the
yeah,
best is how much they actually will catch. And I'm like, I could care less. I'm looking at them all.
yeah.
And then you watch a wave. I couldn't imagine watching a wave of, even on a small lake, just that I could see like 200 fish, right? And you got 200 fish on beds, and then you drop that lake over the next 3 days, and all those beds are dry. And someone's
Yeah.
like, you just caught an 8-pounder off of a bed and drug it to a a weigh-in site. I'm like, yeah, and that when they just dropped the lake 3 days ago, and they dropped it 3 foot, 4,000 fish just
Yeah.
lost all their eggs, and I'm the
Yeah.
problem. And I'm like, guys, we're
Yeah.
just not that big of a problem. Like there are so many other things that are. And there's gonna be guys in this that are probably like losing their minds right now. Man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Most people on here are pretty good. It's just when you watch that and you go look at the big picture of things, you see that like we can't impact a lake as much as we think, which is a good thing. I
Oh,
don't think we do,
oh
but
yeah.
those other things can impact it. All of those fish almost at one single time. You know.
Yeah. And to back your point up, if you talk to pretty much any game warden, fish biologist, they all bass fishermen are almost the worst for a place because we do not keep enough of them. They
Yeah.
all say that we barely put an impact on things. We don't keep enough fish, and like you said, we can't hardly hurt a place if we really try to.
Well, so the thing, and I was talking about, and he's not really saying this, but well, he's saying like I think water quality, and I've made some videos back there before. Like I said, the only thing I can go off of, and I don't know why it was the best thing I ever did when I had a pet bass and in an aquarium and like watching them, and I could tell you like his feeding cycle and all that stuff. And it was the most interesting thing in the world about like I fed him everything, right? From crawfish to perch to shad and it was crazy how he learned. So like I always said, like a green grasshopper, like the big green ones that are like have them big legs on and stuff. He tried to eat one of those one time. You couldn't throw that thing in there. I don't care if he hadn't eaten in a week. He looked at that thing and never touch it. He didn't like the legs on it, right? But I could be like walking around the corner with a shad in my hand, and he's freaking spraying water out of the tank, like so excited. But then he would go 3 weeks without feeding, without eating. He'd
Hmm.
just sit on the bottom. And and it's my fault, but I didn't know at the time. But like, oh, I figured out real quick. The water looked the same, like the water clarity, everything looked the same. But I would change that water, and within a day, he's like back to normal again. But if that water got a little off, he went in, he shut down. It didn't matter how. I'm sure he would have just died. He wouldn't. He
Yeah.
did, and I realized that, and I've heard this before, but like I said, it made sense when I watched him. He never ate because he was hungry. Like all this feeding, like he didn't eat because he. And we kind of learned that with live scope now. Is that like You could see a random fish out there in the middle of nothing, just swimming like this. No bait within 100 miles. And you throw a bait over there and he's like, goes and eats it. Like
Yeah.
they're opportunistic, like they eat to survive in the sense of they're always looking for another meal. It doesn't matter how hungry he is. Like they're not hungry like we are. They
Yeah.
don't eat because they're hungry. They eat because like that's their only way to like that's their entire job is like eating. Does that make sense? Like we got other things going
Well,
on
they
in
do.
our lives. They don't know when they're ever going to eat again. So like it's opportunistic. So if like something's there, they're almost always willing to try to eat. But like you're not hungry. You don't do that when you're sick, right? And so that fish was kind of sick. So water quality always like messed him up. But if he was normal, he would eat until he couldn't eat anymore. And I tell this story too. I used to put like baby crawfish in there. So I'd put like 40 of them in there. Now he'd eat as much as he possibly could get in his stomach, and he'd go sit on the bottom because he couldn't swim anymore. And like one would be sticking out of his mouth, right? And then you'd wake up the next morning or whatever, and he would just eat them all or try to eat them all. But there was one, it was late at night, and I was like, you could see the tank. I was watching TV, and there was one crawfish left in there. And his belly, he looks like he's about to explode. And he sat over that crawfish in this corner of the tank, and he just sit there on top of it, like a foot over it, and just sit there. And he sat there for like 45 minutes, just sitting there. And normally he swims around the tank, whatever, but he just sits there. And like all of a sudden, not like an hour, like I could see him, and all of a sudden, an hour later, he just goes down there and like, I swear it's like he waited an hour till he had enough room, digested enough to where he could eat one more. And then all of a sudden he went down there and just crushed it. But like he just sat there, and I was like, he's just eating to eat, not because he's hungry. He's just like, I'm going to eat. There's one here. And so I just learned a lot from having that fish. And so this water quality, I agree with the water quality, but I would have, one of the big mistakes I would have said was I just always thought fish needed wood and structure and things to live. I was way off on the whole. They don't need any of that. They need it to spawn in little ones. But I think once a fish is 3 pounds, you could put him in a lake that is absolutely featureless. And if it had bait fish out there, that fish should grow 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that before live scope. I thought you had to have all that other stuff. Is that do y'all feel like the younger generation like looks at all that differently, or do y'all even care?
I mean, I care about the fishery, but
No, I mean,
I
like, do
don't.
y'all care about that? Like looking at that differently? Like I said, when we grew up, we didn't think there was none of this offshore. Like even like you said, you went offshore fishing, and it was like idle over things, get bit, opening to and throw a buoy out there. Like there was none of this. And I would assume, and maybe that was just me, I just assumed I assumed every fish in the lake lived on something like where you caught them.
Yeah, I did too. I always did.
Right.
Always did it. And I think it's probably the same way for all of us when we all started first using live scope. It took me 2 years to throw at a bass. I would watch my worm fall into the brush pile, or make sure my jig went over a stump, or I was making the right cast. Like it took me. I just didn't know. I think all of us did that fish did that. Thought they all lived on their house in their house, So
I thought that I always tell people about the learning curve of live scope. Like on my private channel, we talk about it and stuff. And I'm like, there's a process that goes along with it. And I said, what the young guys have over us is that they don't have any preconceived notion. They don't have as many preconceived notions of fish as we did. And so we have all the things we learned before live scope were great, but for live scope, they hurt you.
oh yeah,
And so you have so like they're great habits until you add live scope, and then they all become bad habits. Everything you learned was a bad habit for learning how to live scope. And then you have to like teach yourself not to look at those habits anymore and look at it totally different. And it took me a long, I mean, I was pretty, it's funny now, looking back, and I have guys even message me all the time, like, I'm still waiting to see that the first time I actually catch a fish that you like see him eat the bait. And I remember the first time I saw that, I thought it was like, I thought this was the coolest thing in the world that I finally got to, like you said, like I finally got to see that happen.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, within a year of that, it's like, I saw 50 of them do it today. Like it's not even a big deal. But then there's other things that I do with live scope that I'm like are a first for me. And it's still like I still get excited when I finally, like I know there's a way of people doing something and then it finally happens from like I finally figured that out and it works. And I'm like, oh man. And I just know I got so much more. But it's I think the problem with most of those old guys, and I say it, I'm old too. I just think I opened my mind up a lot quicker than those guys and then shut the other stuff off and said, man, I can't, I just have to go live scope every single day, no matter what, to learn it. And I still kind of feel that way.
Oh yeah. And it's near impossible to erase erase those thoughts. You can't erase them. Sometimes it's so hard to shut them down, shut them away, push them in the back of your mind. Um, but you're right. Yep, you're definitely right.
The so on Rayburn, what I had to do for me was once I realized I couldn't beat anyone on Rayburn without doing it. And which is true. I mean, I think like 95% of every term on Rayburn's won live scoping now over like the last 3 years. So I had to like, it took me a year, but I finally got where I'm like, I can't go half and half. I got to go whatever. I also started realizing that, and it happened this year in the Toyota. I did fairly well in the Toyota. I couldn't figure out how to top 10 on Rayburn live scoping. I spent all practice doing it. And I spent like 4 hours out of 3 days like practicing shallow. And I caught like 80% of my fish shallow during the tournament, did pretty good. And I got better every day. And I was like, hey man, I'm pretty good at shallow. Like I've been doing this 25 years. I know what I'm doing. So I started trusting the fact that I'm like, well, I can just go do what I've always done. And shoot, I don't have anybody competing against me up there. It's pretty easy, you know, or to a degree. And so I was like, I can practice this way and fish if I have to the other way in a tournament if I don't figure it out. And so that's kind of how I do things now is I just fish. I live scope 90% of the time and practice. Or I'm going and practice in some other lakes right now and I've never live scoped up there. And so I'm just going to go live scope and practice up there and not worry. I'm like, we've smashed on them on these lakes fishing other ways. I'm like, well, I'll just lean on that if I can't catch them the other way. I'm not saying it works, but that's what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Are you all excited? Are you interested to see what happens next year?
Yeah, I'm interested to see um I what I there's a few things I'm interested in. One is to see who wins tournaments next year. Like how are we going to see a lot of different people winning tournaments? And I think people will get really creative on the non-forward facing tournaments. I'm curious to see if someone can crack the code catching suspended bass without forward facing, whether it's trolling around with your chart speed on 10 on side imaging or running your 360 at full blast at 10 speed instead of 4. Um, I don't know. Someone may point a flasher in front of the boat. I don't know. I think there's going to be some cool stuff going on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing um, names on a leaderboards that might be different and they might be the same. I don't know. And looking. I mean, I think it'd be awesome for us to go to Gunnersville and people catch them slinging red traps and square billing riprap banks. I don't know, maybe flipping some old pennywort grass on the bank. I'm just curious to see what tactics are going to win tournaments like Gunnersville. Just curious to see it. I mean, we did see it before, but I don't know how it's going to play now.
Well, here's what I'd say. Like I read all the comments and I see random people, I don't know who they are, on social media make comments about things that I they don't know they're saying what they're saying. I'm just throwing this out there. Like, they don't know what they're saying when they say it. So it's like some guy was like, yeah, we might get lucky if someone's catching 25 pounds on Gunnersville, but if they had forward facing sonar, they'd catch 30. And I'm like, okay, like 5 pounds isn't that big of a deal, whatever. What I'll say is this, is that in this short amount of time, and I think this is a little bit of the knock on forward facing sonar from people. It's like the narrative on forward facing sonar is so bad, not negative, but people don't understand it. And then they forget what fishing was before it. And then it's almost like, well, these guys won't know how to catch a fish now without it. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? When y'all go there, it's just like me on Rayburn. I have some pretty creative ways I can catch a fish on Rayburn. Like, I mean, now they might weigh 20 pounds, they might weigh 25, right? Like, that might be the difference. But I have some creative ways to catch 20. My max might be 20, but I can go do it. Like, I can go do it right now, and everyone would be like I'm telling you, it would be different. But I know I would never go do it in a tournament right now because that's not going to win because of forward-facing sonar. Guys are going to go and catch fish in ways that are like different. And when you put everyone doing it, there's going to be a lot of guys that struggle. But then you're going to have guys that like you that like, well, I'm going to go look at it in a different way. I'm going to go like you said, everyone's going to go out there on Kentucky Lake and fish offshore. I can't do that. Not that you can't, but you're like, it's like all the guys that live on Gunnersville. Right. And you might look at it and going, all right, they're all doing that. I'm going to go down this and find some fish in a creek or something. I don't know, whatever. And it's going to look different than everyone else. And you're going to just 18, 19, 20, you just move up the leaderboard every day. And guys are going to be like, oh, that's impressive. Or that's what I'm going to find impressive if guys are out there doing some things that are just regular fishing, but just not regular fishing for Gunnersville.
Yeah.
And they're going to catch them. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm excited to see is some guys like you said, that's what we got for years. Where guys do, like Aaron Martins was like, every time I saw Aaron Martins on a lake, I'm like, does he know what lake he's on? Because he doesn't, what's he doing? And he'd be in the top 3. And I just would sit there and go, that's incredible what he's like, the way he looked at it. But I'm probably most excited about that, to see how that goes for y'all.
Yeah, me too.
And to see like, and we were talking earlier that you're in that age. I got a buddy of mine, he's a little older than you, but he talks about it, that he was at that age where there's definitely before forward face, there's this like age you start getting better at, and you were like at that age, and then it came in, and so you're kind of like, it's not a bad age. I think it might be the best age now, because I always told everyone, I'm like, hey, look, I always thought it was going to come to something like this. I thought there was always going to be a meet in the middle from a long time ago. I always thought, and I was like, if it ever meets in the middle, guys like you that like got it good, but then we're young enough to say, okay, well, I got to change really quick. Y'all are in like the best for the next couple of years. I think you're in like one of the best spots available. You might not feel that way, but I feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I had to learn when I was learning the most. that I've ever learned. I was in college, and the first 2 years I was in college, no, you couldn't win a tournament on forward facing. No one had one. My third year, it was won about half and half, forward facing, non forward facing. My last year of college, you had to be doing it. And same thing at the Open. So I had to learn how to do both. So um, yeah, looking forward to the season for sure.
Are you going to
I,
fish
I
in the EQs?
I do like the EQs. I'm not gonna fish the EQs this year. I got home, sold my boat. I have I have the most busy off season for duck hunting that I've ever had. I have so many things to get done, more than ever, to get ready for that.
Do you guide or you for
But
fun?
no, I got.
Okay.
That's how I've been able to afford the opens for how long it took me to qualify. So I run
How
a
long?
God service. Yeah,
How
run a
long do
God
you fish
service
the
here.
opens?
I fished the opens for 4 years before I made it. This is my fourth year. Um, but yeah, I've been guiding duck hunting since I started my own thing when I out of high school since 2015. So this is gonna be my 11th season of running that duck hunting guide service. So it works out perfect. So I get to do that December, and then January, and I have enough good guys that work with me that I can take off at the end of January this year and just jump back into fishing. So
So will you fish any between now and then?
I never do. I never, but never do.
That's that's wild to me.
From the let's see, since the first year I fished the opens, I sell my boat after the last tournament, and I don't make a cast until the first day of practice. Most of the time, I sometimes I'll go out to Reelfoot and throw a frog around and go crappie fishing, but most of the time I'm not in a bass boat for that long.
This is like wearing me out.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
weird because my mind still runs the same. Like when I'm in the duck blind, I'm there, but it's just so weird. But I'm like, I'll be thinking about my Gunnersville practice for the next however months until February. That's just how I'm wired. Like I don't quit thinking about it. I do quit doing it, but my mind stays there. But I don't. I don't.
I so I hadn't had my boat for like I'm getting some things done to my boat. So it's been 2 weeks. Um, it's been okay because I've gotten some stuff done. I should get it back by next week. I'll head to Texoma for 2 days, practice for a championship because I want to go do like I have this idea in my head. I want to go try it out. I go watch my daughter play soccer in Tulsa, which works out good, and then I go straight to Lake of the Ozarks for the Toyota. I'll probably come back. There's a championship I got in Ray Roberts, like 2 weeks after my tournament on Texoma. So I'll go practice Ray Roberts because I have an idea out there that I want to go try before official practice. I want to go try it. And then there's off limits and stuff. So like I just want to go. It's on the way back and stuff. This is a rare. I used to do this when I was younger. I used to make these long trips where I'd go like practice tournament, and it would just be like an 18-day. I would tell someone, well, I spent this many days, and I never practiced on this lake for more than 3 days, but I would have individual tournaments and then I'd have tournaments with my buddies. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna leave my boat here. I'll see you. I'll drive over here and meet y'all for the tournament. And like it would just be like my schedule is insane. I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. This is gonna be a pretty wild one. This is gonna be, I think, an 11-day trip of fishing multiple lakes and do it. I never pre-practice. I'm just hitting them because they're on my trek to Lake of the Ozarks. Well, one of them's on the way up to watch my daughter play in Tulsa. So I'm like, I'll do it. And then I got the Toyota Championship on Grand in November. So I got like 3 championships in a Toyota. I think they're all multi-day championships with, 2 to 3, maybe 2 to 3 days of practice for each one of them. I think the Toyota championship, I get 4. And Lake of the Ozarks, I'm going to give myself 4 because I just like that place. I just have fun. Yeah. But I couldn't imagine. But even then, I'll get home. And then and Strike King has a little bit to do with that. But I don't know even. I just say Strike King has to, like, I have to do some stuff. Like, I have to test out baits and do some stuff with it. But I'd be out there anyways. But I bet you I'll probably put in more days in November and December than sometimes I'll put it in the springtime.
Yeah. And it's a better time of year to fish.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a better time to fish. And I used to love fishing in the winter. No one's out there. Fish are bigger. They're fatter. You catch the bigger fish bite in the winter. No one's out there fishing for them. And since I've started doing this, man, I've not had a bass boat in the water between November and February in probably 6 years. Yeah.
And I try, like I was talking about the open schedule and stuff. Like, the open schedule looks really good for me next year. Mm-hmm. But the Toyotas, so I don't know if they're going to have that month-long off limits like they've had, but it screws up two of the 3 Toyotas for me. So I'm in this dilemma on whether or not want to fish the opens, and I've just never really. I just don't know if there's a part of me that wants to try to qualify for the elites, but then there's this part of me that's like, I hear stories I know you can go fishing, but then I hear stories of like what guys do in the off season in this like different way. I mean, I know Mullins. I don't think Mullins probably hardly fishes at all. Hackney will talk about not fishing as much. Like, and it's weird because like I go, and I'm not saying I couldn't fish the elites and still go do that. It's just I don't like. I still do things for money, like fishing for money. Like, I think that's a big part of it because it's like, how do you? The only way I can live is if I make money, right, during fishing, and I make it so much from tournaments or a certain tournament lifestyle, I guess you will. Like I don't make that much from sponsors, and so even if I qualified for the elites, I don't know how that would look, like money wise, even year to year. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. I don't see the biggest upside for me if I fish the elites. So it's like I'd be putting in a lot of work to try to do it. I could be wrong. I don't really trust most people, even friends of mine. I'm going to say this out loud. I don't trust most of them on what they say they make or spend or what their financial situation is, nor should it be mine. Like, if like sometimes things don't add up to me.
No, right? For sure.
And I'm not trying to get in their business. I mean, I'm real open about this stuff. Like, it doesn't, I can't, what we do, I had some high school bash on me the other day. Some high school kid got on me the other day, and he was like, look at what you've done at MLF, your money winnings compared to so-and-so's money winnings. And I was going, it was like $500,000. And I'm like, okay, well, I probably doubled that in team tournaments. Yeah. So, or it's like, if you look at like guys that have fished the tour forever and they've made $1 million, but their entry fees were $500,000, as opposed to like, if you see some guy that's never fished a Toyota and just fished BFLs, but his winnings are like 300,000. Do you know how good that dude did in BFLs to win that much money in just BFLs? Oh, yeah. And it's so, insane. Right. And so I remember talking to Hackney one time, and he was talking about the money in this. He's like, Todd, I've spent $900,000 in entry fees to bass. This was quite a few years ago. And so, that was, I thought about that. So I don't know.
It's crazy. That's a Yeah, for someone to win a lot of money in the BFLs, they have to be smoking them, smoking them.
Right. So I just always kind of wonder about what it would look like. Everyone talks about a financial situation in the elites, but I've never really, I don't really know if it's always broken down with exactly how. No one was going to sit there and say how much they've actually made from sponsorships and like different
Yeah.
things here and there. But, and everyone's different. But yeah,
I,
I always just kind of
I
wonder.
yeah. I'll say this that I was indifferent about the payouts, but I did like the $10,000 entry fee this year. I did enjoy that. I mean, of course we all here and there lost a little more money on um, what we could have made if we do well in the tournament, but the $10,000 entry fee, I feel like I don't know, I just was more relaxed and not as worried about the financial side of it because, and fishing the open, it's like you fish a tournament. Let's say last year I fished an elite tournament, I made a $10,000 check. Then next week I had another $10,000 entry fee. So it was just a never ending cycle of it coming out. You know how that stuff works. So
Yeah. It's one of those gambling things that if you're in the top 10,
yeah,
it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Not
it is.
well.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way. I was in the favor, and I know you probably got to go here in a little bit, but I'll say this: I'm always in favor of making more money. I don't mind putting up more money to make more money, right? To a certain degree, right? Like it's got to make sense for me. Like on the professional side, I'm not for it because
Yeah.
I just like y'all made it to the highest level. I always say, hey, when you qualified for the elites, all you did was qualify for a higher entry fee tournament. And
Yeah.
so that's where there's a big difference between 5,000 and a $500 entry fee, right? So I'm in favor of a $500 entry fee in a team event, which almost no one has those because that's too high, as opposed to 5,000, right? And you've got to make, but I just, there's something too that's like when you look at it and go, I have $30,000 or $45,000 this year in entry fees, knowing that going into that's what you're investing for the year.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one, I think, for anyone. And maybe you don't make as much money at the end of the year or whatever, but it is. I assume everyone is happy with that.
Um, it goes. I mean, of course, the top end of like the the top end of the field that always finishes good doesn't like it. I mean, because they made less money, and like I sat down and did it, I would have made 21,000 more dollars, profit if we had had the same payouts as last year. But um, I would say 70% of the field is fine with the less entry fee.
Well,
And
and
I
I'll
mean,
say this too. Um, if when I qualified in 2009 and it was like it is now, I would have done it.
yeah,
I turned it down because I didn't know where I was going to come up with that much money. Right. But now I would, and I don't know if I think anyone fishing the opens right now, that's the difference is if you're fishing the opens, you can do it because it's
yeah,
almost impossible to just fish the opens and not have the money to go do it. But like there was a lot of guys when I did it that you only had to fish 3 events, I had to make a top 3 and then top 3 or top 5, I don't even remember, and then whatever. And a lot of us turned it down. I think there was like 3 of us that turned it down that year.
yeah.
And so I think now it's like, oh, $10,000, you can come up with 10,000 is a lot easier. Like ask.
Oh yeah, and with the short time frame, because that's how I was the first year I qualified for the elites. Is it, and you know this, all the budget stuff and sponsor money that's usually done August,
November.
September,
Oh,
October. Like that's a lot of planning gets done, and it's like when you fish the opens, you don't make it until, I mean, gosh, some years where they run tournaments to the end of October, November, And then the year I made it, I think we fished almost till November, and then we had to pay on entry fees.
in
Like
November.
literally, they were like, "Congratulations on qualifying for the Elite Series." 2 days later, like, "Hey, we need X amount of money." And you're like,
I think I got like 2 to 3 weeks. Mine was somewhere in October, and we had to pay in November.
yeah,
And I was going, and I was laughing. Like my phone didn't ring. Like no one called me up and said, "Hey, here's your entry fee."
yeah, no, it don't happen.
It
It
don't
don't
happen,
happen. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So yeah, you know. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'd like to have you
yeah,
again. I
for
think
sure.
everyone liked it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd be glad to come on for sure. Appreciate you having me.
I don't know what you're going to be doing from now and then. I'll have some fish stories. You might just have some hunting stories.
I'll have some hunting stories. I have. So I run 3 groups. I mean, we'll have 500 or 600 people come hunt with us, and we have a lot of crazy stories at the end of the year. Um, lot of weird, crazy stuff that happens. So,
I see.
well,
I know a couple y'all I know a couple y'all, Crispin Mullins, and you apparently. And I know Mullins is psycho. Crispin Powley is a freaking lunatic when it comes to like duck hunting. Like, is that just
yeah,
you have to be a lunatic when it comes to like duck? Like, that's what y'all love to do
it's similar to what we do bass fishing. You gotta be a little crazy. Gotta be a little crazy
because y'all
to
love it.
have 100. Yeah, yeah. You gotta be crazy to have $100,000 skeeter riding around on a timber field Rayburn. You know.
I'm going dove hunting this weekend. We'll do some dove hunting, but duck hunting is too much. Like,
Yeah.
it stays too warm for us. We just get to go fishing all year long.
Yeah, yeah. We lock up. I mean, most of my lakes, even Kentucky Lake, gets frozen in the winter sometimes. So it gets too cold here.
You got to realize too, our tournaments, we'll have some, we used to have them in December, but I can tell you 9 times out of 10, our tournament starts somewhere the first week of January.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but all
Yeah.
right.
All right,
Well, I
bud.
appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.